play, and I do see the blue cards in his hand. We are seeing a Doffy versus Teach matchup.
All right, here we go. I'm excited about this. I'm hyped to see how Joe's going to pilot this one because it does get tricky, right? I mean, that costs a card from your hand if you want to use that leader ability, but it can be so devastating. And to see if he can put it to good use here.
So in terms of starts, Jonas has the most ideal one in turn 1 for Rona. It was good in set 1. It's good in set 9 as well.
Yup, the rearrange is great. Not to mention he's going to be online next turn, so.
Yeah, it's funny with the Doffy deck, too, because sure you do have a searcher, but a lot of your early stuff is rearranging because you want to know what's on the top of your deck for that Doffy leader ability.
Now, we did get the pitch from Teach.
Yep. That's right. But the thing is that doesn't necessarily stop Doffy from playing something, but it does stop the Edward Weevil from drawing a card, though. So when played does not come into effect.
Yeah, I will say in terms of matchup right now, Joe has an even higher hill to climb. Not only does he have a bad matchup, but he has a bad matchup against one of the best players in North America right now. But seeing him do that early activation of Teach's ability to turn off those on plays, I think is a really heads-up play. So I think we're in for some one-piece action, guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's the best move he can make, but the simple fact of the matter is it kind of hurts to discard a card from your hand to not stop the body, but just to stop him from plussing. That's a little painful. But we get a strong swing over from Teach, whittling down the hand. You have to start making these presses when you can, where you can, because this is going to, the board from Doffy is going to spiral out of control very quickly.
I'm actually interested as to why Joe might have, he went to play the Lafitte. I was like, why is he holding that Don back? I didn't see that in his hand. So that's a really good card. It's basically a Black Bonnie, but for Blackbeard Pirates, which lets him get over the turn's extra advantage.
Yep, and then another pitch.
Exactly, yeah. So the Marshall D Teach leader ability online once again, which if you're unfamiliar, turns off all the when plays on your opponent's side. You don't get any just by playing the leader on the Teach side.
Ooh, and there we see the finger pistol coming out of life.
Yeah, okay.
And the best part about this is normally leaving something as small as Lafitte down against blue is it's going to be bounced back to your hand, it's going to get bottom deck, but using the Teach effect just pretty much gives it like pseudo protection. It's not rested, it's sitting there, and it can't be touched by effects like that. They come into play effects.
Teach's already down to 2 life, though. I mean, he starts at 5, by the way. I mean, the game hasn't been going for that long, and you can just see how much pressure the Don Quixote Doflamingo deck from OPO1, way back when, revitalized with the recent starter, the recent additions from some of the recent sets, can put the pressure on here.
And that's not like what makes the deck even so impressive. It's that it does all that aggression while also gaining a scrupulous amount of value by just playing from the top of your deck. Some of those cards have on-play effects that let you draw cards or add cards back to your hand. So you're going pseudo +2 on some turns while completely depleting your opponent's life.
Well, so Doffy from set 1 has always been such a nasty leader because just by swinging at a value that you naturally want to use to pressure your opponent out of the game, he's gaining value from it. You already wanted to swing at 7, but swinging for 7 and then adding free bodies is just insane.
So here we see Joe doing a good job here of controlling Giannis's board. That's what he wants to do. He wants to stymie this aggression as much as possible. There we see the Dock Q coming down, getting rid of the extra body on Sengoku. I imagine he was going to attack Lafitte if he didn't do that, so that's really cool. We still have the Corona, though, already in play for Giannis. Just kind of get rid of one of these cards, but not both.
The thing with the Doffy deck, too, against the Teach is that, or really any deck against Teach, is you are still on a little bit of a timer, because if that Teach starts to get to roll those 10-cost Teach SRs, you get the giant 12K blocker in there, you get the negate on the abilities, you kind of stuff their attacks for a little bit, you get 2, 3 of those in a row, you can kind of stack your draws. It gets very, very hard to push through for that final damage.
Yeah. The ideal board state for a player like Joe who's playing Teach is like in the late game having like 1 or 2 life, 5, 6 cards in hand, a 10 drop already in play, plus like Doc Q, plus Von Augur, just so that way you can have some repeatable removal against your opponent.
Yeah.
And from there it can almost be locked up no matter what your opponent's playing.
But it is very, very scary. I believe that Joe has about 6 cards in hand. Doffy demands 2 cards per basic swing with its effect. And so he only has so much time before he runs out of cards in hand if he doesn't start establishing blockers. And that's just not a good place to feel like you're playing from.
Sure. Another law comes down. I mean, I feel like Jonas has not gone as wide as you can sometimes with a Doffy game, which is maybe a tiny point of concern, but you've still got at least a big life advantage to build off of here. But we're getting to the later dawn turns right now. We're getting to the point where, will we see that Teach come out next turn for Joe here? Because he's at 8 on, he's going to be at 10 next time.
Yeah, but unless Joe deals with these already 2 attackers in play in the form of Boa Hancock and Law, that turn might be coming a turn too late.
Yeah, that's always the thing with this matchup, and that's why Teaches don't want to run into the Doffys too terribly much right now.
So, I mean, we are only a little bit of interaction away from Parfume just potentially closing out game, and that is extremely scary.
not stop event cards, turns out. Only interacts with characters.
Yep, it's the when played that he turns off. That's about that, you know?
We're getting the discarding of a Teach SR.
That is very telling.
And that's also a whole nother thing. Like, I was just talking about the clock that Doffy puts you on, demanding 2 cards per turn, but Teach is losing minimum of 3 per round turn between its own effect and Doffy's leader swing. The amount of pressure going on his hand it's not for a long game.
And then we see the Black Hole plus a Tempest Kit coming down, targeting the Boa Hancock, reducing its cost by 3, thus meaning Doc Q can get rid of it now.
Yep, that's right. So, I mean, the board relatively dealt with by Joe, so staying alive, perhaps buying himself another turn here. 6K swing comes in, just wants to remove the Perona just to make sure there's no attackers out there besides the leader. And then you got a blocker here, too, with the Vasco shot coming down, I believe.
As powerful as Doffy is, famously, no rush in the deck unless he wants to play the Usopp from set 3, which I don't think many Doffy lists have.
I haven't seen a lot of those in the Doffy list yet.
Indeed. I mean, this is like Joe is playing admirably. I think the hardest part here, and the gravity blade going in. The hardest part here is that at 5 life to 1 life, Joe is fighting to stay in the game. Jonas is sitting comfortably, just waiting out the clock. This is a
really,
really
zero is
rough
scary. Because the Parfum, like you mentioned, can come out of nowhere and just end Joe's whole career today.
A blocker does not even save him.
Yep.
And 5 life is a crazy advantage.
Yeah, seriously, right?
Jonas is like, draws, yummy.
Well, I could use another card. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
well,
why not?
But you got to attack. I mean, you got to start to do damage at some point. We knew there was another one in the hand, of course. There's the first 10 cost Marshall D Teach coming down, that big blocking body. And then just slowing things down a little bit here.
Yeah.
And, is it going to be enough, though? That's the question.
Something notable is that normally this Teach does not stop your leader's effect during your opponent's turn, but because Don Quixote Doflamingo needs to attack, it kind of will pseudo-stop it. But there we go.
And then the Perfume immediately.
Perfume, just like we said, Jonas takes a quick one here. Don Quixote Doflamingo takes